It's an off week for Alabama, but not an off week for the preparation. Bama took care of Wisconsin. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll get into Bama and Georgia, and then also Bama and Vanderbilt. That's setting up to be a pretty good game. Chris Lowe from ESPN joins us. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Show's brought to you by Pearl River Resort over there in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Let's get this thing going. All right, there he is from On 3, Chris Lowe. I'm Mick Gillespie. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Good to see you, Chris. Lots to get into right now. Bama with a win over Wisconsin. I thought they had another, I don't want to say easy win, but they played well. They took care of business and did a lot of things right in the game. Had some shortcomings too, but 38-14 W.
Wisconsin, they couldn't run with Bama. They just couldn't match up athletically, speed-wise, Mick. I think there was a lot of things about that matchup that I looked at even before the season, even before the debacle in Tallahassee. I looked at that Wisconsin game, and you know, when I saw the line, what was the line? 18 and a half?
Yeah.
I didn't think that was enough, and it ended up being, 21, I guess, 24. But it's an Alabama team that I think has done what it needed to do after the FSU deal. They've looked dialed in. They've started fast. They've been physical, played with a focus. And granted, Wisconsin's a Big Ten team. They're not a very good team. But listen, anytime you beat a team from the Big Ten by 3+ touchdowns, I think you've done what you needed to do. Now I don't know, Kalen's most important off week since he's been there, because what can they get done this week, next week, and get ready for? It's easy to say this, but I think this is the biggest game he's faced so far at Georgia.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, just for expectations, I don't know that Alabama necessarily has to win. I mean, I think that it would be great. But if they play like they did in that national championship game that they lost to Georgia, where you felt like, hey, you had a chance to win in the fourth quarter, got some bad breaks. In that game, some tough injuries, didn't have any wide receivers. I don't think people are going to be that disappointed. If they look like they did against Florida State and they just get manhandled, there's going to be a lot of unrest around this program again, like after the Florida State game.
You got to be careful what you say and what we do now, because people sometimes you say and you write one thing and they read and hear another. And I don't think anybody that I trust at Alabama or even in the college football world thinks that this somehow is a must-win game. To me, must-win and most important game are two entirely different things. I think it's your chance, if you're Kalen DeBoer and you're everybody in that program, to show coming out of September that you are legit, that you are what everybody thought you would be before the season, and probably most importantly, Mick, what they thought they were going to be, what this team, everybody in that program thought they were going to be. So you don't want to come out of September with 2 losses, number one. If you do lose and you compete and you just get beat in what I think is the toughest environment to play now in college football, especially at night, no, that's not a season ender. You still got a lot of football to play. The playoff, the 12-team format changes the landscape, as you know. But no, I'm not ready, nor was I ready after the FSU deal to say it's over. This team's no good. Kalen's not going to make it. Yeah, you hear a lot of that. There was some legitimate concern by people who count. But here's a chance. As I said, we talked about it after that game. Here's a chance. If you go in and you beat Georgia at night, and you play the way I think a lot of people, again, thought this team would play, then you're not going to hear a whole lot about the Florida State game, because then you're unbeaten in the SEC. You've beaten sort of what's been the kingpin in the SEC over the last 3-4 years, and you're off, and you're off and running for the rest of the year. So I'll look forward to this game. These are the types of games, especially now in this landscape of the SEC, when there aren't Goliath and his second, his twin brother sitting there at the top, and then everybody else. man, there's a lot of teams. I think we've seen this already. There's a lot of teams in this league that can factor into the race.
Yeah. Look, it's really interesting when you look at the SEC as a whole, right? And we always wonder where Bama stacks up in the SEC. Obviously, being an Alabama show, LSU's ranked third in the country, right? And I look at them as beatable. I thought they played okay against Florida. I mean, Florida lost to South Florida. I mean, so they're not a great team, but they're competitive. I mean, they're not bad. And then obviously Brian Kelly's press conference afterwards is interesting within itself. But it's hard to win these games. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying that the gap's like I'm saying it's like the gap's like this. And I kind of understood what he was saying after that, right? Like the pack is pretty close now. It's not like it was once where Alabama's here and then everybody's kind of here. It's like anybody can beat anybody, and when you get a win in the conference, it's hard to do that. And then you look at Vanderbilt and what happened when they went and just destroyed a top 11 South Carolina team. I know that their quarterback went out, but it really, the landscape's changed so much. Texas doesn't look invincible.
Mm-hmm. I talked to a coach in the league Sunday night, and he said we all knew it was headed a lot more toward the NFL model with NIL and the portal. But now you're starting to really see that on the field. And he pointed that out that, the NFL week to week, 9-7, 8-8 teams go to the playoff. And I think the SEC is much closer to that. It started, Mick, I thought, to move in that direction some last year. I think we're really going to see it this year. You're going to see carnage. And look at the Georgia-Tennessee game.
Yeah.
Neither one of those teams could stop the other. 44-41. Tennessee had chances at home to win it. And listen, when you get into a home environment like that, and that place was crazy. I was at the game. You got to take advantage of that. You got to be able to finish a team. Tennessee had chances to finish Georgia, and they couldn't do it. Now that says, well, does that say more about Tennessee or more about Georgia? That's sort of been Kirby's MO, man. When their backs are to the wall, they find ways to win games. There's a toughness, a resiliency about that program, and they got it done. That said, I don't think this is Georgia from 21 or Georgia from 22. It's just not. And Kirby himself said after that game, I don't know that we deserve to win. When have you last heard him say that? Now, I do think that's sort of, again, that's in Georgia's DNA to win those kinds of games.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a lot more of those types of games. Georgia, Alabama here in 2 weeks might be like that.
Yeah.
You're going into the last couple of minutes. Georgia's still athletic and talented on defense, but I counted it up. Mick, they've lost 31 guys to the draft over the last 3 years. Georgia has. And when you have guys that your other teams are poaching, that are maybe your third best corner, your sixth or seventh best offensive lineman, your fifth linebacker, guys that are all good enough to play, and you couple that with the fact you've lost so many guys in the draft, it's just hard to maintain that level of play that we saw in 21 and 22. And I think that's what's going on right now. So I guess my advice to fans, I don't know that they can sit back and enjoy it if you're a Georgia fan or Bama fan. But for the junkies like me who love every Saturday knowing, hey, this got a chance to be just a complete barn burner, this is going to be a wild ride this year in the league.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, you might have teams with 3 losses, a big pack of them at the top.
Yeah, we see that for the first time, Mick. And this is the test case for that playoff committee, I think, more than ever. Do we see a really good football team in the SEC that has lost 3 tough games get into the playoff for the first time? I think that people talk about, well, the goalposts move with the committee, and I do think they do. But I think that is as we get closer, and we're not close, but once we get into the late November and the selection goes down in December, are we going to finally see a 3-loss team get in as an at-large team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm an advocate for expanding the playoff. I didn't want the playoff. I was happy with the BCS model. I really was. I thought like the regular season was the playoff, right? Like I thought, well, you had to almost be perfect to get there. It was fun. Sometimes not always fair, but it's always seemed to be like pretty much the two best teams. And then they expanded it. And then when they expanded it to this group right now, I think it was 12 teams. Last year, there were so many teams that were undeserving that got in my opinion, or that other teams could have been in over that played a tougher schedule, that I thought, they just need to expand it where you're getting everybody that could possibly win it in, right? And then it's fun to watch. I mean, it is. It was interesting. Who would have thought that we would have all fallen in love with Scattaboo against Texas in that unbelievable performance, But if you want to play a weak schedule, then you can get in that way. But if you also want to go through the gauntlet of the SEC, you should be rewarded and get in. So I mean, I know they've talked about expanding it to 16 teams. I don't care how many they put in anymore. Make it like high school football where half of the teams get in, and it always seems to come down to the two best teams anyway. So it gives us more football. But the thing I don't like is some of these conferences that don't have that just aren't deep getting in over us. And we're stacked, man. I mean, did you see Mississippi State beat Arizona State? They were the champions of their conference last year. State can't win a game in the SEC. Yet they beat and I know it's not the same team this year, but still, they were still picked to win. The conference is really good. And I guess to me, I just, get your opinion, but I'd be fine making it to where it was, 24 or 32 teams. I don't care anymore. I mean, we've already kind of watered it down so much. Why not go more?
Well, you're saying more like an NCAA basketball format where, and I don't know what the fine line is, Mick. I hate to make the regular season completely irrelevant, which in basketball it sort of is, really. I mean, it doesn't really matter until we get to March, and it's how you're playing, how healthy you are. And it's still a little bit like that in football. I mean, Carson Beck doesn't get hurt last year. Does Georgia beat Notre Dame? Maybe. You still could say that. But you go back to the first year of the playoff. Now, it was 4 teams then. Ohio State gets in, and they end up playing with their third-team quarterback and win it all. So I think there's still the depth part of it. I don't know that now, though, going back to my other thought a minute ago, would Ohio State even be able to keep 3 quarterbacks of that caliber? I don't know that they would. I doubt it very seriously. I don't know what the answer is. I always go back to what Roy Kramer told me, the former SEC commissioner, the guy who put the BCS together. And no matter how much you tweak it, no matter how many different people's opinions you have, in college football, there's never going to be a perfect system. And you know this. I mean, every conference is different. And from year to year, they're different. As we just talked about a minute ago, the SEC is much different this year and last year than it was, say, in 20 and 21 and 22 and 17. I mean, Georgia and Bama played for it all in 17.
Right.
In the same conference. They were clearly the best 2 teams in college football. Georgia didn't get in, what was it, 23? They'd won 20. Think about this. They won 29 straight games and lost to Bama in the SEC title game. And they didn't get in. And you tell me Georgia wasn't one of the best 4 teams in college football that year. And
they would have
that's the problem I have with the system is it was always supposed to be the best 4 teams. And granted, that's subjective, and you've got the human element when you're picking the best now, 12 teams, really the best, 7 teams, because you got automatics in there. And I don't know how we get around I don't like having sitting ADs on that selection committee. I know, and I'm not attacking anybody's integrity, but man, it's hard. I know you're supposed to step out of the room and recuse yourself, but as you're talking about those teams through the week, and once we get to the end of the season and you're evaluating, it's hard to take your AD hat off or your commissioner's hat off.
Yeah.
It's just hard. And I don't know what the answer is. Maybe we put you on there. I don't know. Maybe we put they have at least one former media member on every year. So is there a way to combine that with more metrics? Do you take what they did in the BCS and combine it? Maybe you have the committee that's one part of it. I don't know. Are they a third of it?
Right.
and then you have sort of a computer poll. But I think you're going to get what you want, Mick. I think we are going to go to 16 teams. Number one, there's just too much money they're leaving on the table. They don't.
Right.
More teams in, the more money they're going to make, the more TV networks are going to pay.
Yeah.
To your point, if let's say we'd have gotten 16 last year, Bama gets in, Ole Miss gets in, South Carolina gets in, and Illinois probably gets in from the Big Ten. So you give more teams chances, but I go back and look the last 20 years. Who's winning the title? It's the usual suspects.
Yeah.
I mean, every year you probably got realistically when we start playing 3 or 4 rounds of the playoff. So what Ohio State had to play 4 games last year to win it all?
Yeah.
4 like high-end quality football teams they beat. How many teams each year really are equipped to do that? 6, 7, 8? Maybe not that many. And so it's still going to be, and I don't care if you go to 16 or 24. Yes, that's more inclusive. Yeah, fans at Illinois or fans at South Carolina that don't normally get there, you bring those fan bases into the equation. But I still think it's going to be the same teams winning it all.
Guys, make sure you're part of Mick Nation. QR code's right below you there. We're going to be giving away swag, Bama Tailgate Show swag on there. We got hats and shirts and stuff. We just gave away tickets to Wisconsin, 2 sets, by the way, for the game. And we've got some other games we're going to do that for as well. But thank you guys for being here. And then don't forget that if you are looking to hang out with us, the number 1 pregame show in the state on game days with Jake Coker and me will be next Friday from 1 to 3 Central Time at the Bama Old River Grill. That's where we're going to do the show from. So come meet us. We'll probably have some special guests with us as well. And would love to see you guys if you're in the area or you're planning to. It'd be a great getaway, and the Bama is one of the best places on earth. Bama didn't run the ball too well last game, Chris, and a lot of people were concerned about the run game of the Crimson Tide. Can they win? Now, Ty Simpson was I don't want to say flawless, but he was pretty close to it. I mean, you give him the catches on the drop balls, and I want to say 26 of 29 passing, which is really phenomenal. But you get past that, and they didn't have 100 yards rushing; they were in the 70s. Do you think Jam Miller returning is going to make that much of a difference? And do you think Bama can win games like Georgia without a run game?
First question, yes, I think he will be back, and I do think it will help. He gives them that explosive, powerful element in the run game. Maybe he breaks an extra tackle and turns 6, 7 yards into 30-some yards. I do think that will help. He was far and away their best guy. Mm-hmm. And in talking to, when I was there in the preseason, talking to Ryan Grubb, he had looked fantastic. He reshaped his body. He was even more explosive. I think he's got a chance to be a really dynamic football player. I do think he helps them. Number 2, they can't. I don't think you can go in there and throw 40 passes and run the ball for 50 or 60 yards and beat Georgia. Just history says you can't. Even Tennessee didn't beat them. But even Tennessee ran for, 125, 130 yards.
Right.
They ran for enough to be in the game and keep Georgia's defense honest. And the thing Tennessee did is they hit a bunch of big plays down the field, which you've got to do against Georgia. You got to run it. And the way to do that is to run the football, soften them up a little bit. I think they've got to run it better. I never was concerned. Well, and I don't really count. Okay, and talking to the coaches, they weren't concerned about Ty Simpson. He was not their most pressing concern coming into the season. They felt like he would play well. They felt like he would grow. And as he got more reps, Mick, at that speed against better football teams, he would get better. And I think we've seen that to this point. Now he's got an extra week to get ready for Georgia. Ty's smart. Nobody will be more prepared in that film room getting ready for that game than him. So I think he's fine. He's going to be fine. They've just got to play better around him. You're right. They can't drop passes. They've got to make some bigger plays down the field. Ryan Williams got to show up, and he did. He did a lot, but he's got to be in just like last year. The difference in that game, quite frankly, was Ryan Williams.
Yeah.
After Georgia came back and Bama was just so good in the first half, Georgia comes back, which they are. That's the type of program they are. And Bama was reeling a little bit. And, Williams saved him with just an incredible play. That's the version of him they need in this game. They got to have big plays. To your point, they got to be able to run the ball some. I'm not saying they got to run for 200 yards, but they got to run the ball some to keep Georgia honest on defense. And I think Jam will help. And I think on defense, Keenan's another one that they're a different defense with him in there. They just are. He's just unmovable there in the middle of the defensive line. He's a good for an interior guy. He's a good pass rusher. He pushes the pocket. And I think they feel pretty confident that he's going to be there. Both of those guys are going to be there. And I think if you'd have said back in August, 25th, who are your best 7, 8, 9 football players on this team, both of those guys would have been in that group. And both of them are really good leaders too.
Yeah, that's it. It's going to be a battle for Alabama, and then don't look now, but Vanderbilt is going to be coming to Tuscaloosa, and you can't look past Vandy anymore. I mean, the way that they just ripped South Carolina apart after beating Virginia Tech. I mean, this is a legit program. I'm laughing, but I'm not. Because they're going to come in undefeated.
It's a byproduct of what we were just talking about, man. You got to throw Vandy in there when you start talking about teams that have made up ground because of the landscape we're in college football. They're one of them. They've got some key transfers. I mean, where would they be? Take Diego Pavia off that team, where would they be? And I think the other thing that Clark Lee has done, Mick, look at his staff, man. He has a veteran staff, and not just Jerry Kill, but he's got a lot of guys on that staff who've coached for a long time. Tim Beck's another one who've been head coaches. And I love to see coaches that haven't done it a long time as a head coach who are secure enough to bring in former head coaches. Right. Nick was great at that. And as much as it was his program, he really tapped into those guys. I know everybody says, well, it was his, what they call it, his camp or for fired head football coaches. Rehabilitation. Man, Nick never did anything for charity. Okay. If he brought you in, he felt like you could help him. And,
right.
I think Clark's done that at Vandy, and they have helped him. They've created some depth that Vandy has never had. I mean, they're playing a lot more players, which shows up in the fourth quarter. They've been dominant in the second half of their games. They haven't just been the better team, but they've been dominant. And we talked before we went on, this game for Bama, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I don't care what Bama does in Athens. If they win or if they lose, that's going to be an emotional Saturday for them. It's a night game. You're unbelievably high emotionally if you win. If you lose, it's 2 losses in September. You're beaten down emotionally. And then, oh, by the way, you got to play Vandy the next week, which can't imagine Bama would have a hard time getting up for that game, having lost to them last year.
Right.
But it still comes at a tricky part of the schedule, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No doubt about it. I mean, and I'm not looking ahead by any means, but it's just worth kind of bringing up that this schedule is really tough.
Yeah.
And Kalen DeBoer and his staff have a lot of work ahead of them, and so does Alabama. Plus the bullseye on their back always because they're Alabama. But it's a good week to kind of get back on track again. And then next week starts just an incredible run of tough games for Alabama. But it'll be a lot of fun for this team to see, how they stack up and, if they're able to continue to move the ball like they have over the last couple of weeks. Ty Simpson, I could say easily the 2 best weeks of any quarterback in the country. I mean, when you combine those, and it's a different style, man. I look at this and I say, well, Bama was built on defense with Saban. They're built on offense now. If they're going to win, it's going to have to be with the offense. It's going to have to start with them scoring points because the formula is if they get ahead of you, it's tough to catch up. But if they're coming from behind, they're so one-dimensional right now. You saw it in the Florida State game. It becomes very difficult. But fun year already.
I was going to add. You're right. I think it's going to be hard to win at the highest level this year and win a lot of 21-17 games. I don't see it, Mick. I really don't. I think you're going to have to score, not every week, but there's going to be 2 or 3 games within the season that if you can't score 38 or 40, you're going to lose. And look at Georgia. Georgia against Tennessee again, they scored 44. Granted, that was an overtime game, but I mean, think about that 2-3 years ago. You tell Kirby Smart, hey, you're going to have to score 44 to win. He probably thinks you're from outer space. I think you nailed it, man. Bama's going to have to win some games where they score a ton of points. It's just the days going to 9-6. I always go back to that 2011 game there at Bryant-Denny when those two teams, LSU and Bama, played, and there's like 24 guys that were drafted on those two defenses. I think those days of college football are over for right now. It just when you have an elite team that you're playing, there's just too many good players, and offenses have evolved to the point to where you just got to be able to score and win those types of games. And again, I'm not saying every week, but I bet you there's 2 or 3 every year that you're going to have to win like that. No
doubt about it. Well, any final thoughts, Chris? This week, kind of just an opportunity to hang out, and just it's like setting up the fight, and then next week, one of the biggest games of the season until the next game, right?
Yeah, well, you're right, man. That 27th weekend's got a chance to be just memorable across college football. You got so many big games, not just in the SEC, but the types of games that shape the rest of the season. I don't think any of us thought Bama would have lost to FSU coming into the season, but they did. But again, I can't emphasize enough. I think most Bama fans, and no one wanted to go in and look like you were sleepwalking the way Bama did against FSU. That was the issue. Everybody I talked to there that I trust, it wasn't that they lost, it's how they lost that really got people's dandruff up. But I bet you if you brought in 15 of the most diehard Alabama fans and said on August 25th, okay, choose these two scenarios. Of these two scenarios, we lose the opener against FSU, but we beat Georgia at Georgia, or vice versa. 95% of them take beating Georgia. So they still have a chance, in my mind, to completely change the trajectory of this season by winning this game. And I think not only that, but you serve notice to everybody else you play that, hey, we're still Alabama. And I don't care what happened in week 1, we're still Alabama. And I think that carries some weight for the Tide going into the rest of the season.
No doubt about it. There's Chris Lowe from On3. Where can people find you, and anything that you want to direct everyone to check out?
Well, just On3 Sports. And I know you would have picked the Illinois-Indiana game this weekend to be the marquee game in college football, right?
Sure.
I had a chance to sit down with Brett Bielema and do a piece on him and how he's built that Illinois program. So that would be one, but that will be interesting. Two teams that we think hoops, we think Indiana, Illinois, but both of them have sort of come back from the dead. I didn't know this, Mick. I looked it up. When Cignetti got there, and of course, Alabama fans should know about Kirk Cignetti. He was on that staff, that first one under Nick. They had only had 4 winning seasons in Indiana in the previous 30 years. Think about that. They were dead in the water as a football program. When Brett got to Illinois, they'd had 9 straight losing seasons. So I think that's two things. Number one, different landscape. We're bringing transfers. Other schools, i.e. Bama, Georgia, can't stockpile guys. And number two, those guys have been able to come in and recruit that area pretty well. Evaluate. There's a ton of 3-star prospects on both of those teams' rosters, and they've been able to play a lot closer to 4 and 5. So that would be one. Again, I don't know that any of us would have picked those two schools meeting in week 4, and being the I think only one of 2 matchups involving top 20 teams.
Wow, interesting. All right, well, we'll talk to you again next week, and it'll be pretty hype-filled when Bama and Georgia get set to kick off. Show's brought to you by Pearl River Resort, Philadelphia, Mississippi. Timeout Sports Lounge. It's a Vegas-style sports book right there at Golden Moon Casino. They got just everything you need. They got the kiosk, they got the open window, 20 big screen TVs, full-size bar, hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 and change from Birmingham. So it's a short drive over to Philadelphia, Mississippi. Thanks, Chris.
I may not suit up on Saturdays anymore, but I'm still in the game.
Let's roll.
In here, I call the plays, make adjustments, and lay it on the line. Want to feel that fire, that rush? Then you've got to get in the game. I used to say it in the tunnel, and I still say it now. Let's roll.
Let's roll.
We're presented by Bod Coach, and you can tell I'm slimming up over here, and it's because of Bod Coach. This is absolutely amazing. It's your personal trainer that is with you 24/7. So when I go to hotels or when I'm on the road, I type in, "Hey, look, I got equipment. This is what I have," and it'll make a workout specifically for me, what I want, what exercises I want. When I'm at home or I'm at a hotel and there's no way I can get to the gym, it'll say, "Hey, this is what I want to work on today," and it sends you personalized workout plans. It's really awesome. And they contacted me a few weeks ago to be a spokesman. I said, "Well, I want to try this." Bod Coach is fantastic. Like, I use it all the time. I mean, and if I'm telling you, man, like, it makes working out when you are on the go like me so much better. Just because I don't always know I didn't play football at Alabama. I didn't have Scott Cochran yelling, yeah, and telling me what workouts to do. So anyway, I'm going to put in the body on the YouTube all about Bod Coach. Get you guys signed up there, but tell them you heard it on Bama Tailgate.
When you head to the Smoky Mountains, it's only natural to visit Sevierville.
Even we had to check it out.
And we've been here our whole lives.
Experience the adventure of a lifetime.
I'm king of the world.
Even you can get a bird's eye view of the Smokies.
You're going down, Billy. Whoa.
Your Smokies start here.